Guys, tonight's live stream is about the ethics of winning against a narcissist or somebody with borderline personality disorder or any of these different things. And we want to win custody and still be a good man, still be a good person. So this is really important for a couple of reasons. One, the most important reason is that who you are after this is the most important thing. All right, we talk a lot about legal things, but in the overall spectrum, in how long I've worked with people, that is the most important thing. In the 20 years that I've had certain clients, and some now for even longer than that, who you are at the end of it is the most important. At first, your legal battle in this situation is the most important. Like that's really important. It's immediate. But who you become afterwards is really important. So they go kind of hand in hand. And if you don't strategically fight the legal side of it properly, you actually, I want to say, can't become a good man, but maybe I won't be that adamant about it. But your probability of being a good person lessens because you get totally dismantled, disenfranchised, and so on. So as we do this live stream, let me just check and see how everything's going here. As we do this live stream, what I want to tell you guys is I'm going to check in with questions this time. So through each module, or at least I have it in the little script thing, I'm going to check back in with you guys. If you guys are watching this on YouTube on the rebroadcast, go ahead and do yourself a favor and watch it on 1.75 speed or 1.5 or twice the speed or whatever it is. And there's notes that are already in the show notes for the YouTube action. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Like we already have that all there. And if you're not on the 30 and 30 high conflict custody, you need to be on that. Okay, so number one, I'm going to change it. So probably November, I'm going to change it. You're still going to have 30 lessons. You're going to get more, but I'm going to change how it works because there's so much information now that we have that we share with you guys. We have the daily dad to dads. We have all these live streams. We have interactive video. These are like the free components to this, but the lessons alone are awesome. And I think some of them at this point need to be redone. We've only had it since April, maybe May. I forget when I made it go live, but I started recording it in April. And so there's new things that we just know from it. So get on that, because if you're on it, you'll get the lessons how they are now, and they're just going to help you. You probably have a problem right now. It's going to help you. It's free. And there's going to be new modules to it that are just epic, really awesome. Okay, so I want it to be as much of a representation of how we win men custody for free. And then if you need the extra help, you can know whether or not we really deliver it. All right, makes sense? So it looks like I'm streaming live on everything good here. Within this, I'll also say, the guys are still on the call. I was going to incorporate them, but they want to be on their call. But within this, well, I lost my train of thought, so let's just get started. Before we get started, anybody have any questions? Oh, I was going to ask YouTube if you could hear me properly. TikTok, I know you can hear me because you're all through my phone. Bunch of people joining right now. Okay, thank you for the good content. Hey, you're welcome. I wonder what motivated you. This is a good one. Well, what motivates me for good content? So there's a couple things. I've been coaching men for a long time, okay? And I went through this. I got screwed. I went to jail. I lost my kids. So I was falsely accused of abuse many times, and then the last time it was criminal. And then, or the time in 2012, it was criminal, and it was horrible, and I didn't know how to fix it. And I was already working with men for a long time, and so many men who were divorced and in custody battles and all sorts of issues that were ignored over and over again. And so I figured, well, why not really learn this and make it a business? And I'll say this too, I was so disappointed from 2005 basically to 2012 of getting screwed on these things in any information for men. The men's rights movement was just a bunch of quitter dudes. And I'm not saying it is now, but when I got arrested, it was just like these guys crying about stuff. and there was no solution. And I still think there's problems with that within the men's movement. I've always worked with men, and I've just never seen those things really solve problems. I see them broadcast a lot of information, get hysterical, but I don't see people tactically helping men on something that works. I care about what works. All right. So in caring about what works, I saw these guys really have nothing to look for. So I started interviewing attorneys and talking to them and taking on clients. When I take on a client, like, you can quit as a client after we're done working, but I am committed to work. I want something that will work with you. Like, I've had my groups for 20 years, 19. In December, it'll be 20 years. No fronts, man. So I've had it for that long. And if I have guys that I see go through whatever processes of trauma for that long, I want it to work. And so I just had that expectation when I started. And then I realized nobody really else does. So I wanted to do that. And there's good people, like anybody who's making good quality content on custody, I support, even if they don't like me, because if they're making good quality content, there's not enough of it out there. And there's a lot of people who just spread gossip, but good quality content is, like, I'm all for it. So let's get into this action. Let's get into this live stream. How about that? All the people who are watching the replay on YouTube are like, Jesus, this is a almost 10-minute intro, Steve. Let's go. I need to get hydrated. Got the cold stuff and the hot stuff. By the end of this, they'll all be room temperature. Okay, so here we go. What we're going to look at tonight, and you can, if you're on YouTube, you can look at the show notes on this because they're all listed there. We're going to look at the ethics of winning against a narcissist. So how do you win custody and be a good man? This is going to be about 70% tactical and 30% on the moral, virtuous, philosophical. So I really want you to understand that tactically, we're going to cover very pivotal things. I'm also going to reference other videos that I have on this that I think you should watch. And if you're watching this on TikTok, make sure, like, you can leave this and go to YouTube and check it out, but come back to the TikTok or whatever it is you want. There's much more information on YouTube now. And the reason for that is because I can post videos over 30 minutes. And to break this stuff down for real is TikTok has a 30-minute limit. Okay. The other thing too is I'm going to have to start another YouTube channel. So when that comes out, please support it. Support this YouTube channel. It'll still be there. But there's so many different things happening. I want it to really be able to broadcast as much information as possible. Okay? So let's get into this. So what we're going to talk about are the ethics of winning a high conflict custody battle. We're going to define what it means to be in a high conflict custody battle. We're going to define also what it means to be in a custody battle with a narcissist or a borderline person, somebody who has a personality disorder, or maybe they don't have those things, but they're exhibiting those traits and they're attacking us. And we want to also then look at how we do this whole war, how we do this fight that we didn't ask for, the war that showed up for us, the war that we would have sacrificed probably any aspect of our life to not have, to protect our families and whatever your situation is, if you were married, to keep your vows, or if you weren't married and it's only a custody battle, what you would do to protect your kids. We're going to talk about that and how it just showed up. And if you fight it with the wrong mentality, man, you can just screw yourselves legally. That means financially you'll be wrecked. You could lose your civil liberties. You could be put in jail, your connection with your kids, and you pass on generational trauma. All of these things are massively important to me because they are something that is huge in my groups. This is what I work with people on, and my groups have been around for a long time. And we deal with generational trauma. We deal with kids or fathers who came into my group when their kids were 3 or 4, and now those kids are graduating from college, getting married, and so on. And so we see how it affects people. So this is not going to be a theoretical thing. This is going to be real world stuff that comes from men who win and win long term. So the information that you're going to get here isn't just about what to do right now in your custody battle. This is to do the right thing so that your kids grow up with the best father, the best home, the best mother, the best all of it. And I hate to break it to you, that pretty much means you're going to have to fight really, really hard for it. Okay. And in that, in order to be the best man out of this, well, you're probably not going to be able to follow your instincts on this. So first and foremost, I'm Steve Maeda. If you don't know me, I've had the longest running group for men who deal with high conflict custody and the highest density of men who have won their cases. In fact, right now, there's a Zoom call that the guys did not want to get off on, and they're still talking. They're not, I am muted on their feed because they're so into it. And they've been going since 6:30 and it's 11:30. Man, they've been going for 5 hours on this call. So there's a lot of stuff, and there's guys who win, and that's how we share this message. I also want to point out here that this is not legal advice. Only the lawyer that you hire can legally advise you. They know they know your case, you're bound to it, all these different things. And what this is only experience from my groups that I know to have won, that I know to have done well. And I'm going to tell you right now, that may not have done well, that may not do well for your situation. All right? But I also know, in being a father, just how much you can lose. And I hate the fact that people don't give information on this. They don't tell their true story about it, or maybe they tell their story about how they got screwed, but they don't go out and aggregate different information of different dads, which is what we have in our group. Because without that, what do you got? What do you got? You have a bunch of dads who say, you're destined to lose, everybody gets screwed, you're going to get screwed, or just be a good man, just believe in God, all these things. And these could all be right. Like, you could get screwed and you can believe in God. You're welcome for that. But can you do both of those things and still win? Can you get screwed? Can you lose your first couple of hearings and come back and win? I know that to be true over and over again, because sadly, most men come to my group after already losing their first 2 hearings, which is extremely difficult. Like, I only deal with ultra high conflict, and these are the stories of how people win. This is the information that I have for you. So it's at your own risk. You're risking a lot. It's for your family. I know that. I know how important that is. And so it's your fight, man. Okay? Take this information. Hopefully you can win it. All right? Now, if you want more free stuff on this, join my 30 and 30 high conflict custody program. That's going to change in about a month. And it's amazing. There's so much free stuff that I have for you to win. Everybody used to get mad at me for having a business that asked for money for this, which it's worth every freaking penny. Every penny. If you see how hard I work at this, it's insane. And they were like, well, why don't you do stuff for free? And then I started doing things relentlessly to help people out for free. And I realized, well, nobody else is doing this. Why not? You know? So let's get to this phrase that comes from our calls. This is what somebody said on a call this last week. That a man who refuses to fight becomes the victim of his own goodness. The man who fights without ethics becomes the villain. But the man who fights clean, the man who wins justly, and the man who is relentless in his court pursuit, he has the opportunity, the best chance to be the best man, a man full of wisdom, a man full of virtue, a man who can lead others down a high road, and ultimately his kids. Now, as I'm reading this, I'm going to tell you that this is a bit of a paraphrasing of that quote, because I realized I rewrote it a little bit, but you get the idea. So what we want to talk about here is, how do we win? How do we do what it takes to win while being a good man? And what I want to tell you, what I want to break down for you, is the only way to be a good man, a good father, or if you're watching this and you're a mother, the only way to do that if you're in a high conflict custody battle with a narcissist attacking you, with a borderline person terrorizing you, or somebody who is mentally unstable, really making your life a living hell, harming your kids, parental alienation, false allegations, kidnapping, the only way to become a great parent after that is to learn how to fight legally. Sadly, everybody else's advice in this is first the moral, the pseudo-spiritual, all these different things, right? Of, just take the high road, be a good person. And I want you to do those things. We're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about the real high road. You got to realize the people giving you that advice to be a good person are not talking about a high conflict situation. We're going to define that here in a second, but they're not talking about an asymmetrical high conflict situation, one where one party is attacking you and the other party is just trying to follow orders. They're talking about a much more clean divorce or a custody battle. If you follow that advice, you really open yourself up to horrible losses. All right, so every father in a high conflict custody battle has a moral dilemma. First off, you're emotionally rocked. You're probably being attacked. You can't see your kids. Your role of being a father, a man, is completely morphed. And if you have somebody who is narcissistic or borderline, or they have unchecked postpartum, or they're just going crazy and attacking you, they're attacking your manhood, who you are, and they're getting everybody else to also attack you. And you think to yourself, how do I do this? How do I do this and become a good man? You probably feel guilty about it. You probably go, man, I blew my marriage, my relationship. I'm a failure in these ways, but I'm also being attacked and you can't see the difference. And you're then taught, you see all this stuff all over social media on forgiveness. You probably look at things spiritually. If you're spiritual, if you're agnostic or atheist, you look at different quotes and how to manage this psychologically. And you come to a conclusion that you being a good person is the most tangible thing you can do in this moment. Right now, in all of this chaos of your ex going crazy, or she may not be your ex yet, you not seeing your kids, how do you do the right thing because they need to be led into the right thing? And our whole culture and zeitgeist is coming from that same culture where men regularly lose in high conflict, or basically a narcissist or a borderline or whoever can massively manipulate the court system and screw you over. And they probably listen to the same advice of what you're getting now, is forgive and walk the high road. So I want to be clear with you here. I want you to walk the high road. I want you to learn to forgive. I want you to learn compassion. I want you to learn what it means to be a just and a right person. And I take that really seriously. I demand it from my group. And what everybody else is telling you is unchallenged. It is not true. It is not the way that you get there. And I know that tangibly from just watching so many men go through this and walk them through it. And the more we have a society and a culture that gets these things wrong, that gets men's pain wrong, that gets your pain right now, that gets how bad it is to be crushed by your family falling apart. When they get those things wrong, they're also going to get the virtues from it wrong. They're going to have a culture that lies to you, sells you something more than teaches you something. Wisdom can't be passed on, and then that trickles down to screw up the next generation. And it doesn't just screw it up by robbing them from wisdom. It actually gives them the pain of life and problems without solutions and quick fixes, something that we see very much in our culture today. And then we get the pain from that. And we have a further disabled culture, a culture that has everything: YouTube, live streams, videos, eat whatever you want, you can do all these things, but is crippled and disabled mentally, emotionally, with our identity and so on. It's disturbing, right? So we have to figure out the right way. We have to figure out what works. We have to gain the wisdom from that. We can't have fake pain. We can't have fake solutions. We have to have the real stuff. So let's define high conflict custody. So high conflict custody is what this is for. If you're going through a normal custody battle, if you're going through some sort of divorce, somewhat amicable, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people having extreme problems being able to relate with each other, but it gets more specific than that because your situation is different. Your situation of high conflict is not just that you guys can't agree upon something. It's that there's this conflict, this divide, this inability to make things work due to one parent attacking the other. A toxic person abusing, taking advantage of a person who's trying to follow the rules of the system, who's counting on justice, who's looking to seek the high road, who's looking to make sense out of this all. This series, my whole almost life's work, because there are some other things that I talk about, is made for the person that is being victimized by this. So this is the kind of high conflict that we're talking about. So this is important. If you're not in that situation, this doesn't apply to you. You may not need to fight as hard legally. You might not need to be as shrewd. Maybe you can jump right to the simple high road, the one where you just make a decision and you read some inspirational books and you go, man, that's easy. I was just off in my perspective. But what I know from people who have been run through the ringer of the family court system, the business of it, it's attorneys, judges, all the CPS, DCFS, all these people that are profiting and have careers built off of your family's tragedy that don't care about it, and you're thrown away like Kleenex. Also, the culture which discards men, the culture that doesn't care if you're a woman and you're going through this. It's like, it's just, there must have been something crazy. It couldn't have been that somebody's making up a lie and this whole horrible orchestration around them. High conflict for that is who we are serving. High conflict where somebody is being ruined by it, financially devastated, morally devastated, their kids are being taken from them, all that sort of stuff. So you are dealing with somebody who uses empathy as a weapon, your good nature, your good virtue. So we talk about this and many other things. I'm going to say right now, if you have not watched my NPD custody or how to defeat a narcissist for custody, this thing that popped up here, or it's in the show notes on the YouTube video if you're watching the live stream, but on the edited version, it's up there. You should watch that playlist. There's tons of resources for you there that will map out how you were chosen, how your good nature is used against you, and it's repetitiously used to exploit you. And if you don't determine that this person is your enemy and they're really attacking you in this way, it's not just like you're doing that out of vindictive nature or whatever. But if you don't see them as their enemy and they are your enemy, they're going to destroy you. They're turning your kindness against you. They're going to use the courts to do that. They're going to use the whole entire system, the business of family law for that. And their goal is not going to be co-parenting or the best interest of the child. Their goal is not for you to really have a relationship with anybody, because their goal is to humiliate you, to let you know that they are causing you pain. It's only worth something to them if they see it. And their goal is to destroy you. They don't care if you go to jail. They don't care if you kill yourself. They might regret these things a year or two down the road, but in their current state, this is what's happening. Okay? And so your fairness, your good nature, it's going to destroy you. Your male virtues of wanting to build something good and build a good life and immediately seek that high road is going to kill you. It's going to totally wreck you. So when you realize that this is what happens, that you realize that the court is going to believe them unless you change something about the way you attack them, the way that you do this, you are going to lose more than you already have from the point of watching this video. Okay? So you need to go from let's make peace to let's make order. And seriously, if you're a man watching this, part of all the issues in our world right now have to do with men forgetting that we help make order. And if you're a woman watching this and you're going through this, move from let's make peace to make order. But this is a masculine trait that we have lost. So there's 3 roads that you got to walk in a custody battle. Okay? So 3 separate roads we walk. There's many videos on this. I'll try and remember to put one in the cards. Please watch my longer format videos on this topic, because if you walk all 3 in the same way, you will lose. They all work against each other. The first road, what do you think it is? It's the legal road. The legal road is cold, it is shrewd, and the traps of it are emotional reactivity, expecting fairness without learning its language, being lazy with it, whether you don't learn it enough or hire the wrong lawyer or you go in pro se unprepared, you got to do a lot. I don't care if you hire the best lawyer in the world, you have to be prepared to work your case harder than them because you're going to know it the best. Second road, what is that? Second road is the emotional and therapeutic road. If you work the emotional and therapeutic road and have that define, if you have that define the legal road, you will fail. If you have anything in court, okay, so let's just get past high conflict. Let's say you're not one of those people. If you have anything in court that's important and you can lose it, and you do not follow the map of the court, if you do not follow the language of the court, and you follow it on the therapeutic journey, I need to feel, I need to process, I need to understand things, I need to logically map out things, I need to second guess everything and question it. I need to exist off of a maybe. If you bring that into family court, especially, you lose. Yeah, you got to double check everything. You have to examine everything, but you have to bring it to a point. There's no maybe. There's proof. There's a way of speaking that language that's really important. You have to learn it, okay? So your therapeutic road, which is probably one of the most important processes of this, and however long this experience takes for you, 18 months, maybe 5 years. Like, I know you're thinking, I can't do that. You can do it. You can do it. Not every day is bad. You can definitely do it. And the deeper you do it, the better you'll be. That's that crazy therapeutic road. Legal road, hopefully it doesn't take 5 years. Legal road, maybe 6 months, but more likely 18 months, 2 years. And what does that say? You're working 2 different roads very differently at the same time. They cannot cross. All right? The third road is the moral road, or the road that's going to build your life. And the traps of this road are going to be guilt, self-sabotage, screwing up your legal case, failing where you could have succeeded. Self-sabotage meaning financial sabotage, choosing the wrong lawyers, not doing your due diligence, arguing a case wrong, having a case continued by a judge because you mouthed off, whatever it is. There's so many different things in this. All right. Now, what I want to talk to you about here is that you need to compartmentalize all these. So in court, you need a very skilled surgeon with a warrior's mindset. Somebody that perseveres, doesn't quit, but is also extremely detailed. So at home, you need a father. Therapeutically, you need that. You need to understand how that changes over all of this. Your personal relationship with yourself and your kids. Now, in your moral road, your life afterwards, you need to compartmentalize that in terms of what are your values? What is this? What do I cherish? What do I cultivate? What do I hone? Is that living like a monk? Is that living with a certain type of discipline? Is that valuing work? Is that valuing different forms of pleasure or exploration or creativity? How do I find that? And so what's important is in my groups, we always write these things down. When people stay for a long time, they write things down. They write about themselves. we go deep into whatever we can document of our lives. And then we also do that the same for our litigation. How do we document everything? How do we organize it? How do we find the narrative of evidence? If you look at the family court process playlist, you'll find these different things. If you're on the 30 and 30, you look at how to organize your evidence. You need to be able to read it. If you watched my last live stream, you look at the buddy system around that because you might be clouded in that. All these things are important, okay? Now, also, what we're going to look at is how is it that we can find our history? What is our history? Who are we? How did we make goals? What goals did we make and did we fail at? What life situations came in that? What goals did we succeed? What was luck? What wasn't? All of these things, if you work with me for a long period of time, we look at everything, always. So if you win your custody case and you stay in my groups, which is very common, we have huge groups for this, we look deeply. And when we look at that, after 2 decades of having that, we see some insane patterns, okay? We see that working these 3 roads independently is really important. Legally, win. Get as much as you can. There's always compromise. There's sacrifice. But if you get that, for the guys that win, it's going to help out with the therapeutic journey, who you are, your identity, how you are as a dad, how you are as a parent after this, how you see your future, what you do with all these different things like setting the foundation for the moral road, your life afterwards, your worth as a man, forgiveness, compassion, ideals. If you can win this legal road, if you can dominate in it, all of this is much better. Now, if you win this, you can also become a bad person. You can become selfish. You could get something for nothing because you won. That's usually what the narcissist who's attacking you is trying to do. You want to avoid that. You could also lose this catastrophically and very easily slip into decline, you no longer believe in anything, you lose yourself therapeutically, you can't recover, PTSD is impossible, you can't just, get past it. There's all these different consequences that can come from catastrophically losing. But you can also catastrophically lose your legal case. And that's how committed I am as a coach. Like, I don't give up. If you want to keep working, we keep working. If you have made a commitment to me of going, hey, I want to be with you for life, and we make that agreement, which I've made with multiple people, actually a lot at this point. If you catastrophically lose and you go to jail, you go to prison for the rest of your life, you become disabled, something terrible happens, I have watched men go from that and become good. Like the worst stuff. And it's hard. I don't want to say it was like, man, and I'm not done. But there are men who've served prison sentences and we've continued to do the work. Get out, group's still there, still a part of it. This happens, right? So it's really important to understand that this whole process is better compartmentalized. You need to work at it in a compartmentalized way. And even if you fail legally, you can do the rest. It's very, very difficult. But man, if you can win legally, you can set yourself up to be a great man. If you win this, it is so much easier. And that should be our commitment as men. You're going through this, you realize there's a problem, you realize there's a lot wrong with the world. I'm not here to make any political statements. In fact, I don't allow that in my groups. We could talk about spirituality, but I don't ask people to promote religion or politics or anything like that, because to be a great man, you don't need any of those things. But we definitely have a problem within our culture. There's a lot of pain for both men and women, for everybody. You got a lot of work to do. If you have pain at your doorstep, you have a lot of work to do. All right, I'm going to pause right now for a quick Q&A. Does anybody have questions? I'm going to jump to YouTube and back and forth to TikTok. And probably right now, I'll only take one question because we're about a third through with the presentation. There's much more to go. Okay. So write them in if you like. And if I can find my browser here on the YouTubes. Oh my God, YouTube has a lot. YouTube has a lot. TikTok, it's harder to read your comments or questions. Wow. There are more people on TikTok, but less. Okay. So is there anything, this is from TikTok, is there anything you'd recommend to mentally deal with a narcissistic smear campaign? Good question. And thank you for asking. So part of the big problem with dealing with narcissistic abuse is you're attacked relentlessly and you're attacked at the core. So this question was written in, I assume, a woman, but I cannot tell. So oftentimes a male narcissist is going to attack a woman with a lot of power, a lot of authority, and a lot of all the stuff that, you know, our cultural zeitgeist does not like about men, the toxic masculinity sort of thing. When a female is attacking a man, she's going to attack him as that toxic masculine man. Okay, so belittle him, take away his manhood, say that he's bought too much into abuse, and abuse is going to be a big thing, use law enforcement against him. Either way, these attacks hit at the core of a person. All right. Step one is we need to realize that if we fight them, we lose their game. Okay, so please watch my other content on this. It breaks it down thoroughly. And more importantly, get a support system, a therapeutic community, or a therapist or somebody to help you through this. Okay, that's actually really, really important. I hate to be sidetracked here, but get people that can support you. Friends probably don't understand at this point, so get a group that specializes in this. So you have that 24/7 support, and also get some therapeutic help that is experienced in this. So they don't just advertise that they help with fighting the narcissist. It's such a kitsch word. And they may not be narcissistic. They could be something else. Find somebody that's really experienced. For years, they've worked with people who've recovered from this. And it's really important, okay? Your dialogue was made by them. You, before the relationship, had traits that were going to benefit them. They don't know they're doing this. They may have figured it out, but they don't know how deeply they're doing it. They don't understand their level of manipulation. They don't understand their plan. They don't understand their lying. At most, they've seen the pattern themselves and that they get, sometimes they lie, but the foundation they don't see, okay? So just like you probably cannot see that you were born with some good traits to become their hero enabler, they cannot see that they have this massive character flaw, all right? What you got to start realizing is there's a pattern to all of this. So I always recommend write that down, but do not trust your instincts. Your instincts to fight, to fawn, to run, to protect yourself, to seek justice, all work in this crazy, screwed up ecosystem of your guys' relationship. So you need guidance on that. This is why you need a group that isn't just a church group. If it's a NPD survivor church group and you're really dealing with NPD and not something else, right? There could be another aspect to it. Then that's okay. But it's not just any old people. This is where you get the just forgive, move on, find a hobby. You need to do all those things. But because I value them, I know they're not going to work unless you do them right. So you need to get out of the situation. If you're going to interact with them, you need to learn proper boundaries and how to communicate that. You need to work with a really specialized therapist on it and have a support group. I think that that's vital. And then, yeah, you could look at all the stuff of like gray rocking and all these different aspects of dealing with NPD or any sort of dysfunction. But you need to distance yourself. You need to realize you're flawed. You need to realize that this whole ecosystem is the disease. It's not just the narcissist. You're part of it. And arguably, it's because you are a good person. Your good qualities are exploited. You could also have some really bad qualities too, but you need to look at all of these things. Okay? It's not easy. You're not going to just read a book or watch a couple videos or whatever it is and fix it. You should commit so that you never experience this again, you never attract these people again, and you can move on and learn how to have relationships in better ways. This is also one of the biggest problems to all of this. Like, people don't do that. So in that smear campaign, get out of it. You're not going to win it. You ignore it, shut it off. People get old talking. Gossip goes down. They won't. They will continue to attack you as long as you care. Right? Remember, any of your reactions are going to be food for them because you're going to react wrong. Your instincts are off. So you have to learn new ones and learn how to communicate properly. So in that whole smear campaign, don't fight back. You don't need to disappear and be silent, but build your core small network of friends, build your core small network of the therapeutic community, and start working with a mental health professional that can help guide you through this. Preferably that has like 20, 30 years experience. The therapist that we have on our calls, that's for our group, there's actually 2, but one of them has 30 years experience dealing with these exact things with men, and it's awesome. Most people find somebody that has been the therapist for a couple of years and seems cool and what they would want to be. With this type of stuff, you have deep things to work past. All right, let me take a look at a few comments on YouTube and see where we're at. I may skip them. Aha! We have some people who have switched from my call to the YouTube feed. The true fans, the super fans. I am going to get back to the presentation and I'll come back to this. Protecting your child and your peace of mind is moral warfare. Done right, no question. Okay, so, wow, ethics doesn't mean being a doormat. It means aligning strategy with integrity. It is not unethical to defend yourself and your child from psychological harm. It's unethical not to. Whoa! I'm going to put that one in my notes. Thank you. So, and man, the next thing is ethical warfare. That is the next part. But of course, I made this more difficult for myself. Whatever. We're just going to have to go with it. Okay. So what we're going to get back to here is the ethical warfare that is necessary to legally defend yourself, protect your family in a family court situation when we're being attacked, bullied, terrorized by somebody with BPD or NPD, borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, or they have these traits. So this is some of the hardest stuff to convince men who come to me to do. Now, before we dive into this, I just want to say that this is not legal advice. You guys need to research all the laws in your state and county. When you go in front of the judge, you need to be prepared. I always tell people you need to watch your judge. You need to take this really seriously. Anything in family court, anything that I promote solely comes from having the largest and longest running community of men who have won in only high conflict custody battles, very impossible cases, but it's just those stories. And every single one of us knew that it was our risk. This is your risk. When you walk into your courtroom, you should have prepared, watched your judge, understand the statutes, the interpretations of those, how they're ruled on. And if you're working with a lawyer, that doesn't mean that you get to slack. So what we're going to cover here comes from that. All right. Ethics does not mean that you are a doormat to an abusive person, somebody trying to harm you, and somebody who is involving your children in this. It means aligning with strategy and integrity. And it's not ethical to defend yourself from psychological harm at the expense of your kids or your due diligence. So it would be unethical to not defend yourself from somebody harming you psychologically and harming your kids. This is one of the big problems that we have here. You know, you're fighting somebody who is lying, who's manipulative, who projects, who gaslights you. And you can't win this war with emotion. What you can do is you can win it with structure and documentation. You can win it with precision. And this is the hard part because so many men believe that the family courts are impossible to win in. If you do nothing, if you don't do your due diligence, and you're being attacked by somebody like this, you're pretty much guaranteed to lose. You're pretty much walking into a courtroom with a noose already around your neck. This is terrible. But if you handle it right and you understand it, you can win. And if you've already lost a couple of hearings, like most of the guys who start our groups, they've already gotten temporary protective orders. They've lost massively. They've hired a couple of attorneys. Sometimes they've hired like 4 attorneys. They're in the hole $100,000 more. And they've just been screwed. That's much harder to help you out of, but that's actually who our group helps. Like, we can work with that. I would much rather you come to my channel and get my free resources before all of that. But that's the reality for many people. People who signed up this last week, that was their reality. So the question is can I fight to win without becoming what I hate? Can I do this? Can you show me how to fight this legal battle without being evil, being deceitful, residing on revenge, moving into a hateful person that is like the person who's attacking me? And the answer is absolutely yes. And if you understand the difference between functional victory from emotional victory, it's going to be much, much easier. So functional versus emotional victory, it is when we can win for the result of winning rather than the result of the emotional battle that we're in. So let me put this into some context. Functional victory is outcome-based. It's you getting proper visitation, parenting time, you win legally, you protect your kids, you restore order. Now, this is important in our groups. In order to get to that order, we should really inventory this. We should look at it. She's attacking you, trying to take your kids. Does that mean you take your kids away from her? It might, if there's true danger and she cannot repair it. If she can repair it, how do we do that? Well, how do we know? We shouldn't just listen to people who've never done it. Fortunately for us in our groups, there are plenty of men who've been in those situations where they were so sick that they went through the legal process to prove that the mother was so sick that they had to take custody, or that they went through the legal process, the proper psychological regimen, to see if there could be some sort of calming down of this, if it was going to pass, or there was treatment. Because taking a parent away from a kid, it's always going to hurt in some way for the rest of their lives in some way, whether you want to believe that or not. And just think about this. If men who learn how to win custody repeat the same mistakes of women in the 80s and the 90s and the early thousands now, when they were favored as single moms, being a single mom is hard. Like, women need rights, 100%. If there is unfairness, there should be fairness. But within that, it was then assumed that all dads were just deadbeats. So this was a big possibility. And that if people got divorced and a woman took her anger, took her pissed offness, maybe took her unchecked mental instability, and convinced those kids that the dad was bad and infected them in it, then, man, wow, what's that do? Well, that gave me a ton of clients and allowed me to have a career, as well as many other people. You know, it caused a lot of problems for men and women who were once boys and girls of single mothers. And that's not the only problems, but that did happen. Not all single mothers did that, but that did happen. So men, we can't repeat that same mistake. As we start to right these wrongs and we gain power legally, we have to do the right thing. Why? Because we're men. We're not men who are having to follow a political whatever or some social regimen of other people. We're men who want our families. We're men who want to be men. We're fathers. If you're a mother watching this, the same thing. And we're trying to restore order. It does not need the hate. So why do we fight? We fight to have power to stop insanity. But that doesn't mean we just get the win and get to be angry. We might be angry, but we need to look at the wisdom of other people who've done this right. I can't tell you how important that is. I can't tell you how many men come to me that are almost ensuring chaos of their future lives by saying, well, I just want to fuck her up and da da da. I don't get, just give me what works. I'm going to tell you, in coaching men, you're going to feel that. I welcome you feeling that. But you also need to listen to other men who have walked through this. Like this is one of the most proud things I have. I have a group that has maintained that integrity for that long in this type of conflict, to take men to be, to come back to masculinity, come back to what it means to be a father after it was robbed from us. And so many men think it's vigilante, anger, whatever. So every man wants to chase an emotional victory. They want to chase to harm her, make her feel the same pain that she made you feel. They want that retribution. And you know what? I don't blame you. What's going to win you custody? Remember those three pillars, those three aspects of this whole situation? What's going to win the legal game? Now, when I bring this up to men and they say, well, can I countersue her for defamation, all this sort of stuff? I want you to do that. It's a separate case. That case is actually going to be best done at the end of this case. So when you have all of your evidence that wins you custody, exposes her as a liar on court record, then you have better evidence for your case in the future if you were to sue her. Now, that doesn't happen for a lot of times because she doesn't have money. You know, what are the courts going to award you? What are the charges in it? What are the punishments for that? And so you have to look at that. But if you want to look at a case that did do that, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, he won. He won that exact case. So look at what wins. Look at how it happens in your court. So don't just look at his case, but if you need that for inspiration, you might want to look at how that's structured. But then how does this happen in your court? And that will happen after you win custody, because then you're going to have the right amount of evidence to show that was from your custody case. So let's look at a few examples of how dads want emotional victory and how they need to get functional victory. Okay, so we have this all the time, every single day in our groups, guys that are invested to want to work hard. And so I want to say that this is normal, but we have to shift from it. Okay, so dad wants to show the judge how crazy she was. The screenshots, how she's a narcissist, how she's self-obsessed, selfish, she lies all the time to you, to everybody else. Okay, and you want that to be your argument. This doesn't have a place in the courts. So again, watch my videos on the language of the courts. This is really, really important, or the process of the courts. They don't care. So it doesn't matter if she lied to you. It doesn't matter if she lied to the kids or whatever. You know, they could matter a little bit. It's not going to make her lose custody. You can be a liar and raise children. But are you somebody that lies all the time? So we have to bring this up in this sense, like, did they lie, or are they a liar all the time? And there's a specificity to that liar. Do they lie under oath? Do they lie about medical decisions? Do they lie about stuff that matters in child custody? And will they lie in that courtroom Will they disrespect the courts? And will they show their character in the courts? That's more important to show. So again, watch, Defeating a Narcissist in Custody Battles, whatever that playlist is. Watch that. You like, people will watch my short form videos and they will tell me, you didn't tell me anything. I can't in 3 minutes. You realize how complicated family law is. You need to sit down and work with somebody. Now, I understand I might be long-winded or whatever, but I don't see a lot of people doing this. And for anybody to tell you any of this, it's not going to be in 20 minutes. It's going to take a long time for you to get. If you are prepared to do anything for your child, stop relying on information that matches whatever stupid soundbite crap that we see in YouTube shorts or TikToks or Instagram reels. Look at what works. Are you a father that wants something better, that believes in things that are built to last? Are you somebody that's going to be a part of bubblegum, whatever culture that can get consumed and thrown away over and over again? All right? Start thinking with that mindset. So an example of a dad who does things right, if he's a dad that wants to win custody in the proper ways of the courts, he's going to go in with a documented pattern. He's going to have studied how that pattern worked in his courtroom before he entered it. Hopefully, he has the opportunity to study his judge in how they look at patterns. He's not going to react when his ex mouths off. He's not going to call anybody names. When she throws a tantrum, he's not going to throw a tantrum. And what he's going to get is a better opportunity to argue based on facts on if he should have the custody he's requesting. That's the dad that wins. You might be thinking, am I a dad that has those facts? Well, let's talk about that. Let's look at that. What happens if you get something for nothing? What happens if you cheat the ways she's cheating to screw you out of being a parent? Your pain is defining your kid's reality. You need to learn to argue in reality. If you need to change something about your ability to be a father, change it. If you don't have it because she took the kids to school more, start making that available. Start looking at how that may not be the best job for her. If that isn't the best job, how do you prove it in court? You need to learn how to argue things properly. Stop trying to get something for nothing. Stop trying to do what she's doing. You want to get mad about how disrespectful and unfair the court system is, but you're willing and almost wanting to do the same thing as her? This is not good. The courts, I get it. You're going to tell me they're biased and they're unfair. Every biased judge is ruled against their bias. And they are biased. There is a bias. It's totally there. You can show me all the statistics you want. In my group, we show that men can win. Not all of them. We have losses. We can show you that too. And sometimes those guys did everything right. I want to show you how it works. If you want to believe that it's all effed, go believe it's all effed. Become an alcoholic, whatever, do some crappy thing and live as a victim. But man, I'll tell you this, man, there's guys in my group, including me, that have been victimized probably worse than you'll ever be. And I don't consider myself that. I taught myself how to win after that. And so did many of our guys. So look, being composed is your weapon. Part of you holding that weapon, part of you being able to hold the sword of law is to be composed with it. You're a father in a custody battle now. You have to live a different life. In the court, you need to rely on logic. You need to be direct. You need to be shrewd. And you do not need to rely on being righteous. But if you want to build something that is so good you can't deny it, win in family court. Be disciplined like that. It's a different thing. It's not the same as being disciplined in anything else. All right. Let me go through this one before we get to the next set of questions. But if you have questions, write them in. I'm going to get to them in just a moment. Probably take me 5 minutes, maybe more, to get past this one. The trap of spirituality, the trap of the high road. Our culture has a massive problem with the bypass of doing the right thing, calling it spirituality, calling it morality. If you're in a custody battle with a narcissist, somebody who's borderline, somebody who's attacking you, this is the exploitation. In fact, they are probably calling themselves spiritual in all these different ways. In fact, I have a whole video about this, about what they say. I wish I could pull up the notes right now to show you, because it's so ridiculous. Like, I'm healing my feminine or masculine so I can ignore you and not do this and find power because you took it away from me because I'm a victim or whatever. This narrative that they spin over and over again is sad, scary, ironic, and terrible. But you also need to not fall into that trap. And the reason why is when you follow that road of false spirituality, false virtue, false high roads, it will set you up to lose your case. You will become tremendously confused in what's right and wrong to do in court. You'll give favors to somebody who doesn't deserve them. You'll forgive without understanding it. You won't be honoring your own pain, and you won't learn the true discipline and hardships of going through real pain with real philosophy, and we build a weaker society. TikTok is making me recheck in to say, are you alive? You can't fall asleep on your live streams on TikTok. But fortunately on YouTube, you can. All right, back to this. Okay. So many men think in this situation, when they're under duress in a false allegations case, they're being parentally alienated, they cannot see their kids, they're being taunted by the mother, that if I just stay patient, the system will reward me. If I'm a good man, that's the best thing that I could get out of this. If I can make it through this and believe in God or whatever, then this is the best thing. And you know what? I'd probably say that would be right. If you make it out as a good man, if you're spiritual and become stronger in that way from this, that probably means you did something right. But what I would say, if you're any of those things, that would mean that you learned how to divide the BS of false spirituality, of fake morality, of quick fix, cheap Instagram meme culture. You divided that and cut that out of your life and looked at reality. If somebody's attacking you, if somebody's harming you, if somebody's manipulating you, and it's gone on for years and years and years, and it prevents you from seeing your child, and you have not done something horrific to torture that child, that is a different kind of wrong. Perhaps it's evil, perhaps it's bad, but this is not something to ever be nice to. You know, you look at any form of stories in spirituality, it's always talking about this conflict of good, evil, bad, of the human choice, of the decision. You know, whether it's Krishna and Arjuna on the battlefield, all of the Bhagavad Gita is based off of this hard thing. Or it's a Christian or Muslim story that is looking at how we deal with good and evil. It deals with this conflict. Furthermore, it's even worse if we're to question this. If somebody says, man, you should forgive, and they can't show you, they haven't done it, they had a divorce or a custody battle that was not like yours, there weren't threats of going to jail or prison, there wasn't sexual abuse, like the line about you doing something to your child, which is disturbing. That if you're legally fighting this, you have to read that. Police maybe question you on it. This sort of high conflict is completely different. It has to be dealt with in a different way. So justice is not karma. Forgiveness without defense is betrayal. So I want you to think about this. When we're fighting for justice, we're fighting for a man-made thing. It could be in alignment with what we think spiritually. It could be an attempt at that, but it's for something tangible on earth. And it has to serve that. Its point is to serve that. If we learn about spiritual principles defining these things, we're going to then not fight that fight. What happens in this case? And this is what happens all the time. There's a protective order which the state is in charge of, but somehow a woman or her legal team falsely represents themselves and says, we'll drop the protective order, which they can't do, if you do this. Great. We write that on paper, we sign it. Even maybe they sign that they're going to drop the protective order, which they can't do. Right? And this would be unethical, and attorneys could get in trouble for it, but that is also separate from what you just signed. And you walk into court, and then they change their mind. Or they have no power to drop it. You're screwed with that. These types of things happen all the time. All the time in custody. So then when we say, you know what, don't forgive. Let's not jump to forgiveness. And we say these catchphrases like, forgiveness without defense is self-betrayal. And they go, you know what, I'm going to think this over and talk with my spiritual friends who probably go to church or whatever, but don't really practice spirituality that much, or maybe they do, whatever, I don't know. But oftentimes that's not the case. And they say, you know what? In the Bible, it says this. In the Quran, it says this. And we're going to interpret it this way. Without knowing your situation, without knowing your detail, without understanding the law and the consequences of what will happen if you screw this up. And it may not just be the protective order thing. And you go, this person that you're listening to online, we'll say it's me, Steve, he's against forgiveness, which is further from the truth, right? And saying that self-betrayal is the result of your lack of defense, man, he doesn't understand what Jesus was trying to say on the cross. When he died for our sins, and they get all vigilant. And you go, you know what, man? This feels good. This feels like the spiritual thing to do. This is how you get screwed. And this is not just like a one-off example. Like, this is how you will get screwed. I cannot articulate this enough. You're alone, you're in pain, you can't think straight, you're reading whatever spiritual things, and you're looking at that, and you're thinking about how that can immediately give you some sort of, maybe we could say, dopamine hit of going, man, I'm going to feel good about God. Man, this isn't your job. This is not your job. And I care tremendously about, as you'll see, your personal road in this. It's one of the most important things. But if you get this wrong, and if you go back to the beginning of this, if you fail at the legal side, it makes it extremely difficult to get to the therapeutic and personal side of recovering from this, as well as the moral side, the virtuous side, and the life afterwards. If you care about any of this stuff, if you care about forgiveness, get the legal side right. So think about what we're saying with this. If we're being abused by somebody who has borderline and they're threatening to kill themselves if we don't give them what we want. This is where forgiveness is exploited. This isn't about forgiveness. This is about you not feeling guilty. This is about you not feeling the pain of them torturing you. This is about you saying, I want the easy thing to stop because they're panicking. This is also saying that when they're attacking you and telling you that you're nothing and they've gaslit you and they've made the kids hate you, instead of them having anything to do with amending that, you're going to stop that and put your foot down so that you can take the high road and take the arrows in the back. And then you're a father that is crippled because your reputation is destroyed. Maybe your civil liberties are destroyed. Your job fires you. An article is written about you and she publishes it everywhere. All these things that happen over and over again because it was a misinterpretation of our culture of what is happening with great stories that are misinterpreted by people who are supposed to be interpreting these things. If you're Muslim, an imam is supposed to look through the scriptures so that they can interpret it properly. If you're a priest, if you're a pastor, any of these different things, your job is to look at our modern world and how can we adapt that to what's happening now. And it is underserved in a high conflict custody battle. It is underserved with narcissistic abuse. We have people talking about spirituality and morality and philosophy and being a good person that should not be talking about it when it comes down to parental alienation, when it comes down to liars, manipulators, people who are thieves. And by questioning it, by pointing this out, because I work with it and I watch people die who have gone through this. I'm not being dramatic in this. Like, I have watched it. As a result of this, you think I think you should hate them. I think you should stop hating yourself, is what I think. Because you can control you, and it would be the high road for you to take on the pain from somebody who's not going to change. You have to be able to put your foot down. Guess what? Guess what? When you're being attacked by somebody who's mentally ill and they're using the court system against you, it's really hard. And you have really hard stuff in front of you. And in that really hard stuff, morals and virtues don't come like that. Guess what? If you're Christian, you get to be more like Jesus. You can't because he was Jesus. But you get your passion, you get your cross. If you are somebody who is going through this struggle, everything just went up. Yes, you have to fight hard legally. 100%. But if you can make it through that, you're going to be forced into viewing morality, philosophy, higher thought, virtue in a completely different way. You're going to have to, because it's not easy. There's many days where you don't have an answer. There's many days where you hurt. There's many days where you're going to have to go into hate to take steps forward and then realize that it wasn't hate. There's things that you're going to do wrong that you're going to have to amend, like a man, like a father. You don't get something for nothing. You don't get a buy. The ante just went up. I may be getting a little bit too vigilant here, but I'll say this. If this sounds too hard, it's supposed to be. This is the turning point between weakness and virtue, the turning point between cheap thought, cheap masculinity, quick fixes, and stuff that sustains. Man, why did you have kids? You know, probably you didn't really realize how important it was. You may not have thought about it that much. Maybe you just had a good night and you became a father. What does a father mean? Why do we fight for it? Why are you willing to do anything for it? You know why? Because it's deep. It's in your bones. It's in your DNA. We feel it. So because of that, build stuff that works. It's not just you believe in legacy because you read the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. You believe in legacy because you're ready to work and build for legacy. Right now, that starts with your court case. But it doesn't end there. And it goes much further. Let me open it up for some questions, comments, and whatever else we have in the fun times and topics of this. So, TikTok, I'll start with you. Actually, I did start with you last time. Okay, all right. Okay. No, I know. At one time, I would have agreed with you, but no longer. Okay, maybe that wasn't for me. In the Bible, Jesus says, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." And is this, I'm not sure the context of this. I get this Bible verse, or maybe I don't. Okay. Some of this might be inner talk discussion. Yes, who is it? I have lots of proof to. Man, yeah, you guys are talking amongst yourselves. So the Jesus quote, was that for me? I also forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. The only one that's holding on to anger and hatred hurts is you. This isn't forgiveness, it's about taking care of my child. Well, what is the topic? I have a high conflict case. Okay, let me answer what I can make of these things. So I'm not here to talk about anybody's religious choices. You should have your religious choices. You should have your political views, whatever they are. What I'm here to do is to encourage you to find those at their depth and what their meaning is. What I know from my experience in looking at forgiveness and working with people who've had very, very hard things, when we look simply at something Jesus said or that was written down by his apostles, because the two most influential people of Western society, and this could be argued, but it would be Jesus and Socrates, and neither of them wrote anything. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of how much the Bible is rewritten or whatever, but there were many interesting things, and even the apostles didn't write their own stuff. And Paul was massively influential of a lot of this, right? Which is another story. This isn't being said to change your beliefs, but this is to say that everything that's written in something that's been translated and politicized over and over again needs to be distilled and lived in the best possible way. Now, what I'll say in my life is that I have distilled and lived these things a lot. And let me just go through it because I think they deserve some respect. I've walked with people to their graves multiple times that our society's given up on, whether those were soldiers who had PTSD and didn't relate with the celebrity vet superhero society that is now turning out to have a lot of lies behind it. And again, that could be good if you had a good experience with these things and beat PTSD. That wasn't the experience of many people. I've done this endlessly for guys in divorce and custody. I did how many hours of calls today? So this live stream is whatever. We were on for 5 hours before that. I did 2 hours before that. So we're at 9 hours of me talking to men. Now, part of this is for the live stream, so I'm not actually interacting with men. Those men want to kill themselves. They hate everybody. They want to kill somebody, whatever. I'm not trying to downplay that because it's sacred. I've done this for 20 years. The day I lost my kids, so I found out I wasn't going to see my kids for at least 2 years, which turned out to be 5. That day, I went from my attorney's office, walked under an overpass. I cried. I called every number in my phone. Nobody picked up. This is one of the things that I say to do, call people. And somebody then picked me up after 2 hours of sitting there. And what did I do? I used to have access to a state facility for people who were in prison, serving out their drug sentence. And I went and spoke. And I went and worked with those people. I've done hundreds of volunteer separate hours than just speaking there and working individually with those people. I've done this. This was free, nonstop, every day for 20 years, for 19 years. Okay. In a couple months, it'll be 20. I've spent hours working with people who have PTSD, people who are drug addicts, people who have been sexually abused, people who have gone through custody battles, people who are incarcerated, people who have done wrong, people who have been falsely accused. And I have done that work and served it. And for a lot of it, I did not get paid or any credit. And when people tell me about forgiveness and they say that they're right because they read something, but they haven't done a tenth of what I have done, and I've watched some of those men forgive over and over again. Like this is every day for me. And I have to argue with people about morality who have not done what I've done. Now, if you have done what I've done, if you have watched a man and have no logical reason to tell him not to kill himself right now, and all you can do is have the spiritual experience. And look, man, you know why they have the fish in Christianity? This is one of the stories. I don't know the actual fact check of it, but maybe you do because you're the expert. One person would draw a line in the sand, and then another person would complete it, and it made the fish, and then you see it on the back of cars now. And part of that was because what's unique about Christianity and what's unique about Islam as well is they're religions that you could be converted to. You weren't born into. That what was inside of you, this guy, Jesus, who didn't talk about having major churches and tons of riches and all this sort of stuff, said, give up all of that and help people in need. Help the poor. Find the God in you. Do it as an individual, because two people coming together and talking is what makes this work, and not being born into it. It's one of the differences between Judaism, right? And it's fundamental. This gives worth to the human spirit. And so when I hear people talk about Christianity and what it should be, and they're sitting from an armchair, man, I spent 9 hours a day on the phone talking to people, and that wasn't 9 hours that I could be helping homeless people or doing a lot of the other stuff that I've done for many, many years. When I hear those stories, when I hear about people whose fathers held guns to their head and made them have sex with their entire family, and what it's like to live after that, how do you have choice in having a relationship and having a relationship with those other family members, or forgiving their father and walking a person through that, and to the point where maybe it kills them because those things happen in it. I don't know why I do that. That was a volunteer job. I don't know why, but I felt it was important. And forgiveness, carrying that cross, or however you want to put it, goes to a whole different level. So when I see guys come to me in divorce and custody, and they've been screwed over, and nobody believes them, and they're considering suicide, and I have somebody who wants to take what I would value as a scripture's word as something really important, and maybe you should live by it and have that be its lesson, instead of words from an illiterate person, or said by an illiterate person who didn't really care about that whole thing, who hasn't done those things, tell me about it. Look, I do it every day. If you do it every day, awesome. Let's talk. But I just know I don't armchair shit. I do it. It's hard. It's really fucking hard. So I would recommend that for most people. And then you'd get a litmus test on reality. And you'd stop thinking that our crises in our world of men's issues, women's issues, kids' issues, all of that can be solved with gossip. Now, you don't have to go out and serve humanity. But I don't understand why people who call themselves Christians don't do that. And I think it's awesome if you make some food for the soup kitchen, but I don't know, man, if you want to, what would Jesus do about it? Step it up. And I don't know why that doesn't happen. I'll tell you this, guys in my group, and you can be whatever religion you want, they get along with each other, right? There isn't this sort of divide of that. And service is big, because if you really are in pain, I mean, like, I'd also ask you this, like, do you really know if somebody really has to forgive something, if they really have to give something up? You know what that process is? Like, is it just you read a couple lines and you're like, boom, man, I just didn't think of it. It's not like that. It takes years. It's very, very difficult. And it should. And especially with your kids, it should. It's a big deal. But when you take somebody through that, when you watch it or you go through it, man, there's a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense. And nobody writes about it. We have a myth about it. It's like the celebrity vets that say, man, I would have had PTSD, but I did this instead. What was the person that is deeply affected by something that was traumatic that they saw? Were they just stupid or negligent? Is because my road of forgiveness of being betrayed and deceived and screwed over, was it just stupid? I should have listened to you. No, man, we are underserving real men's pain, real women's pain in our culture that we ignore. That is fucked up. That is so fucked up. So I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't answer any more questions. We'll get back to this. How about that? Aha. So let's talk about winning custody when we're in a custody battle where there's abuse happening, and psychological abuse that the courts don't recognize, like NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, some form of untreated postpartum depression, or just traits of these things. Winning in a custody battle with somebody who's in that state is your moral duty. It's what you need to do, not because you hate them or you're angry at them or you have a lack of virtuous insight. It's your duty because there's pain happening and it needs to be stopped. It doesn't need to be stopped and have them hurt. Oftentimes when there's somebody with a personality disorder, they're saying, you're hurting me. Why are you doing this to me? Or they could be hurting you, saying, you made me be a bad person, so I'm doing this to you. These are some of just the normal kind of random scripts, these scripts that just unearth themselves from these people when they're doing wrong. They could be telling you that, but what you need to do is you need to stop it. Okay, this is really important. And this gets exploited all the time because people take on different ideas of being moral or right or virtuous and all these different things. And they move it to what's going to alleviate them out of pain, make them feel good about themselves, and all the different spiritual bypassing stuff that we do. And it's very tricky because spirituality should be something that is sacred, or philosophy or personal philosophy. If you're atheist or agnostic, this should be something that is very important to you at your core, instead of winning an online argument. So winning is not about ego, even though your ego will be inflated by it. Your ego wants it, okay? This is a moral act. And its point is to stop the abuse and reset order. Very, very important. When you fight strategically, lawfully, with discipline, you are serving the highest virtues, okay? And you're protecting truth, you're protecting love, and you're setting things back in a way where they can happen. So let's take a look really quick at what is virtue, right? So it's a word thrown around a lot, and many people have their own definitions for it. One of the ways that I use it in my coaching, which is important, it's the goodness that is within you. Okay, so virtue is a man-made thing. It comes from the result of making choices and actions. Choices only are for, well, you could argue animals, but mammals, and especially humans, it gives us a lot of our worth and our ways of navigating through the world. So nature doesn't choose anything, right? There's only one thing. So there's actually no lie in nature, right? We can lie about nature because we have choice, but it just shows its expression. So when we have this, human choice is so important. It's what makes humanity such a good thing. Virtue is the result of good choices. Good choices, not just being good, but shaping what is good inside of you. So if we were to look at an idea of Platonic or Plato's version of good, this was very much it. There was something beyond, up there, many different levels, complicated guy. And within that, there was this overall good that was then put into forms and then different thoughts that we had and so on. And this was special. In the Q&A part of this that I just talked about, one of the interesting things of a Christian take on this would be what Jesus often talked about, even though he didn't write anything. And he had long been crucified and passed away when anything was written about him that is in existence. But all of that is about finding the good within, so much of that, right? And we get into different forms of Hinduism, similar things, and so on. So this is part of that virtue, right? We want to fight and do things right and win for the goodness within. That's always been my definition in taking guys through this. Now, if you're watching this, you might be thinking, man, I don't care about that. I just want to win. Cool. Let's start there. But I want you to get to a place and do it in a way where you get to that. Okay. Now, one of the things that we've been talking about over and over again is when we lose that, right? When we lose these things, it's harder to find that virtue. So if we lose legally, if we get manipulated, if we act nice when they're still plotting against us, or maybe they're nice and they really do want to make up with us, but they're still escalated in their state, which could last for months or years, could last indefinitely if they're allowed to, if they're given the food for that. They're going to go back to that manipulation and screw us over in an illegal battle that's massive. It affects our kids. It affects everybody. So we have to remember that in order to honor that law, which is going to then empower our virtue, and law, in fact, is a virtue of man. Only see it in human-made things. History is needed for it. Society is needed for it. So very interesting thing, like law, even though there's so many problems with it, is the attempt to find order in humanity. It's one of the most amazing things that we have. So we follow that law, we document, we have strategy, and in all of that, it's to make a long-term good. Now, in order for that to happen, if we're being attacked by an abusive person, we have to stop it. We stop it, but then we also have to move to becoming good, handling very difficult things. So this is a pretty crazy thing. What we find in these custody battles is that we find huge spectrums to what it means to be moral, what it means to be just, what it means to be good, what forgiveness is. It's not just catchword phrases like forgive and forget or forgive but not forget. We learn a true path of that by fighting hard, seeing the heads of the beasts, the hatred, the anger, the resentment, learning to walk through that, but always do the right thing. Do the right thing that creates the long-term outcome of protecting our kids. Okay, so through war, we will learn forgiveness. If we're being attacked and a war is placed in front of us, we're going to have to go through it. Or we could surrender and submit and find the road of forgiveness from that. It's just going to be, I feel, much harder when you're being attacked in that way. When the result could mean you lose your kids, you are parentally alienated, they're taught to hate you. You we'll also find out things like compassion. You'll find out the true meaning of service. So, an interesting thing, a huge part of my life has been service. So much to the point where I have to stop it. Okay. And there could be all sorts of different codependent qualities that could come through with that and these sorts of things. But in service, what I learned early on is it had to be selfless. Me talking about it now actually gets in the way of the anonymity of it. Because if I could be anonymous while truly serving, I had no identity in it. I couldn't take credit for it or own it. All I could get was the essence of the service. This thing that man-made choice could produce, right? This thing like I could choose to do it, take the action in it. It's clearly within the human experience. Other mammals can do it, but they may not do it so much. But we can choose to do it. But the result of it is this other great thing. This thing that I feel comes from beyond. Back to that idea of Plato and the noose and all these different things. Noose, not noose around your neck, but I think it's Nous. It's a ranking or hierarchy of the spirit. So I could find these things from that. I could get to something that seemed greater than me and was a great teacher. Now, in that, I could then live a better life. What's interesting is that when we get into true virtues, it's not going to get you money necessarily. It's not going to get you fame. It's not going to get you a lot of things that our society says is what being a good man is. But what's interesting is our society is so desperately looking for what a good man or a good woman is, whether that's through religious vehicles or spiritual stuff, philosophical stuff, and so on. People are obsessed with it. They're missing it. It's just they would like it a lot more almost as if they could make a bunch of money and be famous and look like the appearance of a superhero with it. Now, we're going to jump to this last module. And before I do, I just want to once again say that in all of this, this is not literal legal advice for you. What this is this all comes from working with men for massive amounts of time, every single day, for every day, for 20 years. And working with some of the hardest cases in divorce and custody that were super high conflict that seemed impossible to win, that many of these guys gave up on, and my group was their last chance. And I want to be clear to you that they did the work. They are the heroes of this. But we provided the infrastructure, I provided the support, the therapy, the legal assistance, the helping them with their cases on this. And through that, there's a tremendous amount of experience of seeing what wins and loses. In all of that, I rarely hear the reality of what I've seen told online about the court systems for men, or narcissistic abuse in general, or borderline abuse. I see it hit upon. I like a lot of the stuff that I see, but it's not talking about the entire story of that, which is extremely difficult. So in this, if you're fighting this in your legal case, or if you're working through this therapeutically, this doesn't replace a lawyer. This doesn't replace therapy or a mental health professional. What this is it's telling you my experience from working with thousands of guys on this every single day in very, very hard situations. So this is all for you to do at your own risk. I appreciate you. I wish more people had, maybe you could say, the balls to put out information on this, but many people are scared to talk about male suicide. And actually, I'll tell you, male suicide, legal high conflict things, and many of the issues men have, many are issues that are oftentimes censored by social media outlets. And I actually don't say those words because YouTube will get me for it. All right. Let's talk about integration, winning our custody case, being able to dismantle a narcissist in a courtroom setting, being able to expose them not just as a liar or somebody who disrespects the family court system, but exposing them to the thing they've been trying to hide their whole life. And this is something that we talk about a lot, especially in our videos that really talk about courtroom structure in fighting a narcissist in a custody battle or somebody with borderline, is that after the battle is over, we soon realize it's not about revenge. And one of the things that comes up all the time in our groups for guys who really fight through this, like they go through the war zone, revenge is something they've felt, anger, contempt, hatred for their partner, something that they felt, a desire for their partner to fail has been a part of the experience. But afterwards, this almost never happens. And this is one of the ways I can really tell if a guy has gone through it. If you fight that hard, if you fight a system that's that impossible, with a super high conflict case, if you fight in that way, there's something that changes. There's something fundamental in your psyche that changes. You know, the word psyche was another word for the soul in Greek. So when we talk about spirit, soul, psyche, mind, they could be similar things. And also with the tribe I work with, mind, this gets a little bit different. I don't want to put it out officially, but what you think and how you think is an expression of the spirit. To truly change one's mind, to truly work with them, to go through the pain and the suffering and the chaos of this is a worship, an elongated sacrifice to the essence of love. And this can be very, very hard to get. But if we do not start to look at how people go through these extreme hardships and how they relate to some of the best human qualities, love, compassion, and so on, if we cannot see them completing that and we deny that dialogue in our culture and we just say this person is insane, they're talking about being ruthless and vicious in a custody battle, and how that is somehow an expression of love, or the changing of one's mind is part of the window to a true virtuous change, something very deep in you, we say that that's not possible. And the only way to do it is just to forgive off the rip, right away. They're hurting you, but be good. We are putting out people who've been in pain, who've been in impossible pain. Many of the men that I've worked with, even outside of custody, been in impossible pain, that have been thrown away by our society with no option for redemption. And this is interesting because this mirrors so much of our culture. Why we hate people, why we should cancel them, why we should not listen to them. That if they say one thing and it misaligns with this outside imprint or image of who they are, then they deserve not to be heard. They are of no worth. What's interesting in custody battles, especially with people with NPD and in borderline and traits of these things, when men are being attacked by somebody like that, there's usually false abuse accusations. These false abuse accusations talk about sex abuse, violence, and these are all things that our culture has readily acknowledged that it's okay for that person to be thrown away. And if we don't think that, it's then better to at least ignore them. Any man who's going through false accusations understands this. One of the reoccurring themes that we have is we are men who correct this. When we're fathers who stop getting something for nothing. When we're fathers who demand the real meaning of what legacy is. Not that you remember my name, but what I create goes to live on. Whether that's my kids or my gene line or an idea that I make, that's how important it is. I can think of the best stuff in the world, but if I can't give it the life that I feel it deserves, that my mind, my soul, my psyche say it deserves, then what am I creating? So when we as fathers are going through this process, we go through a spectrum of extreme pain. And the guys that I see really go through that, they change. So men, women, whoever, as we go through this pain that was so bad that our culture could throw us away, that everybody ignored us. When we go through that, and we really go through it, through the family courts, we build a spectrum of understanding. It's just what happens. And you probably need some help with it. Like the guys in my group don't just come upon that, but they realize there's more beyond this than just hatred and revenge. One of my first clients ever, before I really specialized in custody, this was in 2009, at the very beginning of my community. He was one of the original members of my community. Some of those guys are still in my groups from 2009. He said, everybody deserves a good divorce. And the reason why he said that is because it challenges somebody in so many ways. It breaks so many myths about what's right and wrong. When we have those myths broken, like the justice system will screw us if we let it, we could go on believing that, or we could find the real truth to it. When we have everybody in our church group or spiritual community tell us that you just need to forgive and walk the high road. She's the mother of your kids. Do that. You're holding on to anger. You're reliving your trauma. You're not getting past this. Find a hobby. But that doesn't work. And we find other people who've done it. We go, man, they're saying the opposite. Our first inclination will be to dislike them, to think they're wrong, also to think maybe we should cut them out. But in time, as this goes, you go, man, there's a bigger image to all of this. So this is really important to understand, is that when we go through this, it's such a long process for many reasons. We are not going to have a quick answer, which is horrible. I would love to change that. I wish the courts would be quicker. I wish there were easier solutions to this. And I think that that would be best overall if that could happen. But because that's not happening, and you have to put so much into this, you go deep within yourself. If you ever have life hit you with going deep, you should go deep. You should find the depths of yourself. You should look into the parts which you don't look into. You should understand the source of your hate. You should understand the source of your anger. You should understand that it may not be bad having it, but it's bad if you let it control you. That it does have a worth. That it is holding the hand of love. That maybe the person that is hurt and killed or caused evil is somebody that could be like you. And see, when we get into these things like forgiveness, if you cannot understand the full spectrum of your hate and you parrot a word, what really is that? If you haven't had the experience and the human experience that relates with this, the world that has given you such pain and anguish and chaos, if you haven't had that helping you define good, bad, evil, honesty, open-mindedness, any of these different things, what are you living by? In my mind, that is a defacing of virtue. To say it because it sounds good and is understood, but you have no relation with the true challenges of it, is one of the worst things we could do to one of the best things humanity has created. So, we as men who are watching this, I want you to become better men in this. I feel, and I have probably some of the most amount of experience to be able to assess this, of what happens in all these different variables. And I wish there were more. I encourage you to work with men on this, walk with them and see what happens. But it is better over a 20-year period to fight and win in family court so that you could get your mental health right, you could become a better father, live in the now, and build your future life and become a better human being. If you lose, you can still make it all the way across there, but it's much harder. I did it. That was my story. That's how it started. And then I learned family law and all this stuff. And I still don't want to be arrogant about it. You're in pain now. You have to fight to win. Fight to win legally. Compartmentalize it from the emotional, mental, therapeutic side. Compartmentalize it from the moral, virtuous side and who you are. Your religious community, your interpretations of what is right and wrong directly conflict with one of the other great virtues, which is law, especially the law of family court. There's all sorts of reasons for it. But if there were a suggestion I would have to make for you, cherish all three of those things, work it, and make yourself a better human being. And you need to, because the pain and suffering that comes from NPD, from borderline, and from parents that do that, well, we're already seeing it, but probably in the next 5 years, we're going to see just how badly that has shaped and tortured children. And the real victims in this are not you, because you had a choice in it. You had a choice to stop it, leave, and to choose your partner. Whether that was massively manipulated or not, I understand it. But your kids have no choice. They were born into it. You, as their father, it is your job to do what is right for them. So do it. All right. That's it. Let me look on YouTube. Sorry, TikTok, I got carried away. I get passionate. That's what the borderline and narcissist people say. I'm just passionate. That's why I burned down your house. Okay, science isn't surrender, it's discipline. Jesus, holy smokes, this is good. Fighting a narcissist in a court isn't about revenge. It is about rescuing truth from drama. Man, this is like some genius stuff here. Questions, comments, write them in. No questions, great stuff so far. Functional victory, enforceable orders, predictable schedule, documented compliance. This is good. Calmer kids, emotional victory equals momentary ego hit, usually costs you credibility, money, and time. Man, are you having AI help you? Well, guess what? AI also helps me. Should help us all. That's really cool. Functional victory. Functional victory is something that we really need to think about. Okay? In fact, hold on one second. Hold on. There's a comment here about functional victory versus emotional victory, which is a key theme when we're in a custody battle, especially if we have a custody battle with somebody who has a mental disorder or a personality disorder, borderline, narcissist, all these things that are so regularly in common in our culture. And so a quick definition of that is a functional victory would be something like a parenting plan that works. That works for the overall good, that starts to lessen drama. It could be proper documentation, moving into empowering a law or a statute. So we fit the narrative of the court. And an emotional victory is something where we win, we hurt the other party is limited and subdued. And this could be good. Like tactically, if we just take a step back, have no emotion in it, none of my teaching in it. If you emotionally cut somebody down, especially with a personality disorder, they might stop. This is a goal. But our flaw is that if we don't also marry it to a functional victory. So what we really want to do is we want to get functional victories, victories that work in concrete things that are enforceable through the family court. And they can also stop the pain and the abuse from somebody with a personality disorder. Oftentimes, we go for that emotional thing first and gain functionality out of that. It doesn't work. It's kind of interesting because there's so many different things that we teach. And in one of the live streams coming up, it's about this philosophy that I based a lot of the stuff off of, which is the Born to Be philosophy. Now, in this, purpose is one of those things. Purpose, similar dynamic. Purpose in the human language can mean functionality, and it can also mean meaning, right? So the purpose of my hand is to pick up my glasses, start and stop things, move a camera, all sorts of stuff, right? But the purpose of my hand could also be the meaning. And this is an interesting thing because my friend Juan, who lost his arm, he brought this all up, is that after he lost his arm, after he lost the function of his arm, he then realized the great meaning in it. What's interesting is in the deficit of so many different things in our culture, we seek meaning. We're desperate for it, mainly because we have no identity or we have our identities diminished. We don't know who we are. We're taught that we can work for an identity. Like instead of having food, water, shelter, which in any society really, or we didn't have societies, but that we evolved in. So what our brains were formed in, what our mammalian connections were formed in over millions of years before we were humans, it had this relation to other people of what we needed. And now we can't get food or social attention or acknowledgement or even shelter, all these things which were free of what we were born into, even though we did have some hierarchies, they didn't span out to crazy, things that we make them. We think in order to find that meaning is to go about society's way to do it. So we want to go into what society's definition of getting things, which is usually like money, sex, power, status, attention, winning online arguments to define what philosophy is or something like that, and not living it. We don't have our natural outlets for that. And so we're in deficit, we're in starvation of so many things in our nature, but we seek for societal or cultural solutions to a internal or born to be a thing which we have to have in order to function to get that. And so what we teach in terms of purpose is before you go for meaning, find function. You find the function first, then meaning. So if your life needs more meaning, you're going to say you want more meaning so that you could do more. I can create more, I could make more money, and then I can be important. That's what our purpose is exploited for, our meaning driver. First, find function. Make things work. Make things work in an order. Could be boring, could be stale, but when we have meaning from starvation of needing meaning, it gets all screwed up and we're sold a bunch of lies. So I like that rabbit hole just for you who wrote that in, because the ADHD, baby, the ADHD. In the end, conduct outweighs, man, there's a lot. Okay. A leader of people is their servant. Yeah, a leader of people is their servant. I used to know this guy who was an entrepreneur, and he said, he's a great entrepreneur, man, amazing at building businesses. I kind of know. This guy was so good. It was awesome. He said so many different things that you just, boom. I got to remember that because he just had it in his blood. He said, what the hell? I don't have a company with 170 employees. I have 170 bosses that I'm always serving. And in a way, he was right, but also he was pretty awesome as an entrepreneur. Man. Yeah, the victims are the kids. Dudes, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys are well. It's 1 a.m. for me. One of the reasons why I do this so late is because kids, work, all sorts of stuff. Tomorrow or Tuesday, I plan on doing another live stream, which will go into a lot of just general male trauma and pain that I've seen over the years and why it's there. You might not like it so much. But here's what's up, guys. As I said, there's a lot of pain and suffering in what you're going through. I'm not going to give you false hope. There's hope if you want to do the legal work, if you want to do the internal work, if you want to do the work around things that don't make sense for a long time. And at times you're going to want to give up. You're going to want to quit. You're going to have to be lazy because you're going to kill yourself if you keep going. But just understand that people have done this, people have won it, and they always say ask for help, but don't forget to also help other people. I don't know how I would have done any of this if I wasn't always working with people. I think it's really important. On that note, TTFN, ta-ta for now, people. Who remembers that movie? I think that movie was called The Ouija Board. Good night, guys. Guess what I got to do right now? At 1:10 a.m. I got to call somebody. Later.